we've been struggling on all kind of fronts in the sense, I mean, like all other restaurants and so many other businesses in this country, we've been struggling to recruit and maintain staff. This is a well-known and documented problem, and many people in our industry are campaigning now to open the country to more immigrants, qualified immigrants, people that can work in kitchens and in restaurants in general. So that's a struggle.
Yotam Ottolenghi has been credited with turning a nation on to the delights of Middle East cooking. His latest book with Noor Murad is called Extra Good Things and comes from the Ottolenghi Test Kitchen, the OTK. And if you're tempted by sambal tofu with cashews and ginger pickle, or tatty scones with fennel and sausage gravy, then it is for you, out now in time for Christmas. Something a little bit more colourful and tasty to look at whilst crashed out on the sofa doing turkey and stuffing burps. Yotam is here now. Very good afternoon from us.
Good afternoon.
Now, it says in the introduction to your beautiful book, this book brings you an abundance of veg-forward meals from the OTK team. So let's start with what veg-forward is, and then we will do the OTK bit.
Okay, and I won't say almonds or almonds.
Oh,
No, don't.
No, brilliant. What would you say if you hadn't heard that little section? Just do a natural pronunciation.
Okay, I'll say almonds.
Almonds.
No, almonds, he said.
Almonds. They do like a hybrid, maybe.
Don't confuse the issue.
Anyway, sorry. Let's go back to being veg forward. What does that mean?
Yeah. So essentially, it's not a vegetarian cookbook, but it really has a focus on vegetables. And I've done this for many years. So even in my restaurants, the vegetables are at the very center of the menus, and that's still the case even in the cookbook. So I love vegetables. I think they are the best thing you can eat. But many people eat vegetables without being totally vegetarian or without being vegetarians. And this book, like all the other books that came before it, is really focused on vegetables and how you can really extract flavor out of them or inject them with flavor. So all the extra good things, which we can talk about, are there to really get those vegetables tasting especially good.
Okay. And the OTK then, this is the Ottolenghi Test Kitchen. And this is an actual place, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a place on the Holloway Road in London, and essentially it is where we create recipes. There's a team of about 5 or 6 recipe testers, and this is where we test every single recipe that goes into books and into newspaper columns that we publish, and also recipes that are tested for our London restaurants and delis, products, etc. So it's kind of the heart of the Ottolenghi hub in terms of recipe creation, and it's really fun. So it's as you can imagine, delicious things are happening, but also really wonderful conversations about what's going to go with what, and what are we going to serve this Christmas as opposed to last Christmas. So it's always about food. It's very geeky, technical conversations, but also very it's what we want to eat.
It sounds amazing. Can I just ask you something about the universal palate, though? Because if you've got lots of people who are taste testing things, everybody likes slightly different things, more heat, less heat, more salt, more sour, whatever. But sometimes when I watch those cookery programs, especially MasterChef, actually, they always talk about someone having a good palate, as if there is one kind of benchmark. Is there?
I tend to think that there is all sorts of cultural variants and personal variants, but I do think there's something about a really good, delicious dish when it kind of just hits the spot that is universal, with all the caveats of all the things that are relative and how different we are from each other, etc. I do think that when you hit on something which tastes incredibly good, it. And so I tend to agree with that. With the meat, it's got an optimal cooking level. Vegetables have their kind of also, I guess, optimal to cooking level, but also how much you can extract out of them. So when you taste something which is well done and is balanced, you recognize it and you know it.
But when was the last time your socks were absolutely blown off by a fantastic new combination of flavors or ingredients?
So it's not necessarily something completely new every time you test something, because there's things, there is a limit to how much you can innovate in terms of like putting one thing against something you've never had before. That doesn't happen very often. But the surprise or the innovation or the moment where you taste something, you go, oh wow, that's wonderful. That happens every single day when we try things. And I mean, that's the beauty of these kind of creative environments. And by no means the Ottolenghi Test Kitchen is not the only place where recipes are created. It happens everywhere, where people create recipes for books or for any other reason. But sometimes it's the smallest minor variation that could make a huge difference. I'll just give you one little example today, just because it's fresh. I just had it a few hours ago. I was at the test kitchen, and we have one of the recipe testers called Verena. She's a very talented baker and pastry chef, and she created I don't know if you know, but there's certain desserts that are called, it sounds terrible, but it's really good. It's like self-saucing. A self-saucing dessert is a dessert in which part of the rest of the pudding is not completely cooked, so it's a bit of a sauce. So she created this thing which had it was an almond-based milk chocolate pudding. And before it goes into the oven, after you create the batter, you pour over a combination of cream and water, and that kind of accumulates in the bottom. So the bottom doesn't cook completely. So there's this kind of runny sauce going on the bottom, which makes everything so delicious. And it was a kind of an eye-opening moment, because I had that and I go, oh gosh, that is so good. I have never had that. I had all the flavors together, but not this particular thing. And it was utterly delicious.
Can I just ask you a question on behalf of people who have sort of a few herbs knocking about, but can't usually access fresh herbs really quickly, or just don't have the time to go out and buy them? So can we substitute, for example, fresh thyme with just a bit of dried thyme? Does it work the same way? And can we miss ingredients out if we just don't have them?
Totally. And I mean, people have always talked to me about, you look at your recipes, they've got such a long list of ingredients. I mean, is it really absolutely essential to have everything there? And I always say, like, it's not the case. You can substitute things. So there's certain things you can omit, you can play around. And I mean, I kind of create a benchmark, which is the benchmark with which everything goes according to plan. But then when you take one or two element out, you're also going to be pretty happy when you try things. I've just spoken to someone who said, oh, I don't like chilies, I don't like heat. So I cook all your recipes that are, even the ones that are all about the chilies, I still make them and they're still perfectly fine and delicious for me. So I think it's really okay, as long as the ingredient is not included in the title of the recipe. That's what Laura often says. You're okay.
Can we play Ottolenghi roulette, whereby you just pick a page number and we'll talk about the recipes? So you can go anywhere between page 27 and page 212. Pick a number.
Do I do that?
Yes, please.
Oh, 69.
69.
Unusual number to pick, but there we are. Come on, Fee.
Jay, don't.
Just came into his head.
Well, it might be his date of birth. You never know.
The 69th.
1969.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Rotti.
I know. Why did that come to mind?
Look, let's just press on.
Move on, everybody. Rotti with golden rassam. I don't even know what golden rassam is. Great pick. What is it?
So rassam is a broth that comes from India, and it normally would have tamarind and lots of spices. And in this particular case, we use yellow tomatoes. You can use red tomatoes, but it's just how wonderful it is with the turmeric and the other kind of yellowish spices. And it's got heat, it's got ginger. And it's a kind of like it's in a hot weather, but obviously it's wonderful also in the winter. It's got that kind of heat that really penetrates and makes you sweat, and with lots of heat, lots of chili, mustard seed, etc. And obviously the rotis that people would know. Roti, it's a wonderful flatbread that you kind of dip. It's got our roti has got ghee, so it's cooked with ghee, which is clarified butter, and you kind of dip that in your golden rasam or the rasam broth with the turmeric and all the rest, and it's just wonderfully delicious.
It looks beautiful.
We have some love for you, Yotam, from Eileen. I cook Yotam's courgette frittata with paprika rather than cumin. I hate cumin, and it's still a showstopper, says Eileen. So you're right, people are just mixing and matching and doing what they like with your recipes, but loving the results anyway. Anonymous asks, after years of using dried curry leaves, not a patch on the fresh, which I've just tried. Shall I just chuck the dried ones in the bin and only use fresh from now on?
You shouldn't have bought them in the first place. So dried curry leaves are just, they just don't do anything. It's as if they've got no flavor whatsoever. So either fresh curry leaves, which freeze really well, so you can buy a bunch and keep them in the freezer, or just like so many other ingredients, as we've established, you can do without them. I wouldn't get the dried curry leaves. It's one of those things that really don't work. I don't say that about many ingredients. Many of them dry well, freeze well, go well in a can, but not curry leaves, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
If you only had a fiver and you were cooking dinner for 4, which of your recipes would be a go-to one?
Oh, there's an opening. The opening recipe to the book is called beans on toast, but it's not any beans and it's not any toast. It's a kind of slightly spiced take on. So it's butter beans that come from a jar, or it can come from a tin, but you can use other beans as well. And there's a kind of a mixture of cheese, cream, and curry that you put on top, and you toast it. And whilst the toasts are being made and all the butter melts, the cheese melts, and things go nice and crunchy, you make a quick pickled onion, which is pickled onion, red onion sliced with a bit of cider vinegar. And that pickled onion really happens within minutes. So obviously you can make a jar and put it in your fridge, but that acidity really cuts into the richness of the beans, and it's a quick meal, and it's really fantastic.
It's ever
like
so
15
pretty.
minutes done.
Yep, it's beautiful because those the onions go the most stunning, almost kind of neon pink, don't they?
That's right.
So that looks very nice. You've got kids, Yotam. Do they eat as wide a diet as would be available to your customers in your restaurants?
They don't like coming to my restaurants, unfortunately. So we have to, the only time I can get them into one of the restaurants is in the morning, like for breakfast, and then they'll have the scrambled eggs, and but they find this food too intense. There's too much going on, and they would say that. I mean, it's not like they're too picky. I mean, they eat vegetables and they're okay, but they can't stand the taste of preserved lemons, and if something is like full of green bits, lots of chopped herbs, that puts them off. So so that
I'm really reassured to hear that.
But it is reassuring. I do want to know though, would you ever take them to such thing as a fast food emporium, Yotam?
They have, we've had a couple of those. I live in Camden, so on the high street, really just around the corner from us, there's a bunch of fast food restaurants, and they really gravitate, and it's a battle. I mean, we kind of I go, okay, once a month they can go to one of them. I won't mention any names, but they get their fix. But actually, I mean, they are good. Is with everything that I'm saying. I mean, if I love making rice. So rice or fried rice with fried onions and some nice vegetables, they'll eat that. I think what I learned with kids, the best way with kids is just to give them more of what they want. So I mean, obviously they like starches and they like pasta. So you just work with that, and you just add more things. You load it with other nutrients, but rather than just make something that they would never touch. Kids always win.
Yes, well, they do. You've got restaurants. How are they doing? And are you concerned about how they'll fare over the coming months?
So far, touch wood, things have been okay for us in terms of the restaurants have been busy. I mean, we've been struggling on all kind of fronts in the sense, I mean, like all other restaurants and so many other businesses in this country. We've been struggling to recruit and maintain staff. This is a well-known and documented problem. And many people in our industry are campaigning now to open the country to more immigrants, qualified immigrants, people that can work in kitchens and in restaurants in general. So that's a struggle. Obviously, everything is more expensive. So far, we're doing okay, but I am worried about next year because I think people are going to feel this crisis even more, the cost of living crisis, and I am worried about how we will be able to sustain the businesses successfully with all these difficult conditions.
On a completely different tip, we were discussing hummus in the production office before coming on air today. I don't know whether you have strong opinions about it, but do you like the pimping up of it? You know, you can get every type of hummus now, can't you? With the red pepper, the roasted garlic, the barbecue flavors, lime and mandarin on
Yeah.
top. Is it right?
You know, this is a thing. So it's a cultural thing. So I grew up with hummus. Hummus is a staple of both Palestinian and Jewish residents of Jerusalem, the city where I grew up. So I love hummus, and I love a really good hummus, and I really don't like all these mixes. But, and that's a huge but, I realize that this is of my culture and of my heritage. So this is why I'm quite protective. But I've done my share of bastardizing the cuisines of other places all over the world. So I can only speak for myself. But if people want to play, they can play. But I would never touch such a thing, especially not a beetroot hummus or a chocolate hummus. I think these are just abominations.
I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. It's very nice to talk to you this afternoon. We've got 3 little questions for you before you go, if that's okay. Not really related to the book, which is Ottolenghi Test Kitchen, Extra Good Things. What are you reading at the moment?
Okay. I love an American author called Elizabeth Strout. And
Are you
she's
reading O.
actually
William?
Sorry?
Are you reading O. William, her latest?
No, I have read that already. I'm reading an older book of hers, and I love every single book of. I just love her voice, and I love everything about her writing. The book that I'm reading at the moment is called Abide with Me, and it's not with any of the familiar characters of the previous book that I've read, but it's just as beautiful. And I just love how she creates those very intimate family or your wider group situations, and kind of you come in and out of people's lives, and this just the poetry of every day. I just think she does it so beautifully.
She's absolutely incredible. And a TV show you're invested in at the moment?
I've been watching a Norwegian show called, oh my God, what's going on? It's about the time. It's set in the late 60s and early 70s. It's about time where oil was first discovered in Norway. And it's a wonderful drama about relationship, about politics, about the way.
Is it State of Happiness?
State of Happiness.
Yeah, there you go.
State of Happiness. I'm now on the 2nd season. And I also love the fashion. That's just like 60s. So it's like a bit like Mad Men. It's like all those wonderful 60s fashion. The clothes are just so wonderful, but it's not superficial like that. It's just a great show as well.
Yotam, so interesting to hear from you this afternoon. Thank you very much. Yotam Ottolenghi.